last time we were talking about Maslow. We're going to finish that today and then go on to the final theory of the course, Kohlberg's. Let's go to the PowerPoint. If you'll remember, last time we were talking about safety needs being the most basic, and I remember I talked about physical safety, and I gave the example how in societies themselves, in which the forces that are responsible for our safety, see if you can get my picture in the corner, the forces that are responsible for our safety, if they threaten us, how it threatens our basic, it's basic to what makes people human, and it's terribly threatening. And then finally and then I talked about consistency and predictability. People who we talked about, if you remember, people who move around from place to place and all these kinds of things. And I wanted to give you a little example from a friend I have. There's a group of people in the Middle East, come back to me if you can, called the Druze. Put the picture back on me. And the Druze, they're a small minority. They're a minority religion, and they're sort of called, they speak Arabic. If you ask them in Syria if they're Arabs, they say yes. If you ask them in Israel, they say no. If you ask in Lebanon, they say, well, I have a student who's Jewish, she says, well, I'm Druze, right? So it's interesting. And they, of course, and they're split between Lebanon, Israel, and Syria. There are probably less than 1 million of them. And so, of course, they're a small minority group. They don't have their own country. And I had a good friend who was a Druze. And they have a long history of military history. There were times where there were ferocious wars with Muslims in the Middle East. And when Israel was founded, they as a community came and said that they wanted their sons drafted into the military along with the Jews in Israel. So they served in the military. And my cousin was doing a doctoral dissertation on what happens in small villages when agricultural villages, what are typically called peasant villages, when the population explodes and they can't support their people anymore, right? When the stable populations, there's just not enough land when the stable population stops. And so he was doing his doctoral dissertation research in India, and he flew back the other way through Israel rather than going over the Pacific because we have family there, and he came to visit me. And he said, while I'm here, do you know any people who are in that situation? And he knew that there were villages in Israel, these small farming villages that are just overgrown. So what happens that one of the people who did guard duty regularly in the place where the kibbutz, the settlement I was living, was Druze. Okay? And he was basically a professional soldier. That's one of the ways he handled this exploding population. Many of them became professional soldiers, professional watchmen. He was professional guard, a professional watchman, after he had been in the army. And at that time, Qasim was... This was the 1970s. He was in his 50s. So he had lived under the British rule of Palestine. His father told him stories about when the Turks, right? The Turks ran Palestine until 1917 when the British took over. In 1948, the British withdrew and Israel declared its independence. But he remembered the British quite well. As a matter of fact, he'd even worked in the British administration for a while. And if you asked him how things were, fine. But obviously, all things being equal, he would rather, what's my cousin? So I went to his village, and he took us around the village, and he took us to the mayor, and he took us to, he owned land there, but he was letting his sons run it because, there wasn't enough to support all of them, as I said, and to the mayor and the school teacher and this and that, and I told him my cousin was a professor. Ooh, it was big stuff, right? Or he was almost a professor, but what the heck? So, and it was, and of course, like most people, well, it was okay to the British, okay, he had complaints, but basically, obviously his gut level complaint was that they didn't have their own country, and especially they were split, right? He had to sort of sneak across the border to see the rest of his family in Lebanon. In those days, it was a peaceful border, and the guards on both sides turned their back. But basically, so it's when we're walking down the street, and my cousin said, okay, I see there are pros and cons. He said, but tell me, what are the two best things about the Israeli administration? What's the best thing? He stops in the middle of the street. He points to the health clinic. It's not national medicine, but everybody's covered by a health plan. And he says, and when the police when you call the police, they come. Now, this was basic physical safety. First of all, there's medicine. And there wasn't, under the British, there wasn't a medical plan that covered everybody in the country. Now there was, and that's physical safety, right? And that, by the way, is part of the debate we're having over medicine now. Because it used to be a doctor came, well, now we really think that, medicine is making vast improvement. It's basically our lives. And when he said the police come, he wasn't worrying about his physical safety. If you know Qasim, he was tough. He'd been a soldier his whole life, right? Or at least since his 20s or his 30s. It's been 20-something years he'd been a soldier. He wasn't afraid of anybody or anything. You broke into his house, and he had his rifle with him all the time. He was a professional gun, right? You broke into his house, you might as well, before you start planning breaking into his house, call the funeral parlor, right? This guy was tough. He wasn't afraid of anybody. So he wasn't talking about the police protecting him. He was talking about consistency and predictability. He remembered, and he said so, under the last years of the British administration was chaos, right? There were Jewish underground groups and Arab underground groups, and they're both fighting the British to get out of there, and then they're fighting each other, and within the communities, the groups were fighting each other. It was chaos. You call the police, halfway there, they might be caught in an ambush, or might be called for something else because there's something more important going on. You couldn't depend on anything. Now there was a nice police station in the town and a fire station in the town where he was, in the village, and if you called them, they came, right? They were, most of them obviously local Druze, but they came. There was consistency and predictability. And that's important when you teach for people's safety and for what's going on and how they feel and what's happening. And of course, the mental illnesses we talked about, there are typical for. We talked about people who never feel safe, who never feel things is consistent. They become compulsive. So everything is just the way it's supposed to be. And the other side of it is people don't care, right? If you remember, Mickey Mantle did not take care of himself physically, right? He died from liver cancer ultimately. And he said, my father died in his 40s, my brother died, and my grandfather, I think he had a brother, I can't remember. He said, my whole family, everybody died young. So I figured, what the heck? Right? There's no reason to take care of myself. In other words, he felt so unsafe, it didn't make any difference. Turned out, he shouldn't have been drinking. He got liver disease, right? So that's the kind of thing that people are talking about. That if you feel safe, you're consistent, you take care of yourself, and you feel the world is basically a safe place. Okay? Therapists who work off a humanist model will tell you the first thing that has to be is trust, safety. I can trust you, you can trust me. You're safe. I won't give away your secrets. You notice the safety of the clergy, the safety of the attorney, right? The secrecy of that, because you're safe. Okay? You feel physically safe, and you basically feel that life is predictable. There's a predictability in life. Okay? Once that happens, let's go back to the PowerPoint. We go to the next stage, which is love and belongingness. And love and belongingness basically says, now that I feel safe, I want to belong somewhere. I want to be part of something, a part of society. You notice that people who don't feel safe, people feel paranoid, etc. That's paranoia is lack of safety also, right? Everybody's out to get me. They don't want to be with people. This is a question of love and belongingness. You belong somewhere, you're part of something. Many people said that this feeling of belongingness and feeling that this need has been met is the key to creativity. We'll talk about that a little more. Okay, come back to me. Okay, we have a word for belongingness at the university for the fact that it's called tenure. Okay, you get tenure, you belong. Yeah, you belong here, right? But it's interesting that people have to feel that they're part of something. Okay? Let me see if I can say this in a nice way. Schools are rotten at doing this. Was that nice? Many of our educational institutions are not so good at doing this. Universities are better. Okay? We have all kinds of words. There's something wrong with you, you don't belong. You're LD, you're ADHD, you're not this, you're not on the honor roll, you're this, you're that, the other thing, right? We tend to make people feel that there's something that they don't really belong. Right? But not all of that has to do with the teachers or the administration or any other caregiver, right? Another provider of social services, right? There are kids who are just not, they're in the out group. Anybody see Revenge of the Nerds? That's a great movie, right? What happened is that the nerds didn't belong, so they made their own group, and then they belonged, right? They belonged. What do you have to do to belong? Now, once you get to be an adolescent, there are people who live their whole life. I knew one, I don't know, it was a girl, we were teenagers. She lived her whole life for camp. She loved camp. That's where she felt she belonged. Later, we were counselors together. She loved camp. Of course, last I heard, she wound up permanently in a mental institution, so I'm not so sure what happened, but she and I were buddies for a while. But it's the idea that there's some place where you belong. That's your place. Okay, that's the thing, and a sense of belonging in that you have a place here, and that you can be here, and what you have to do in order to belong, will depend on the society, right? So, for instance, I know there would be nobody here, or anybody who ever listened to this tape, but there are people in a group, right? Been friends for years. All of a sudden, everybody in the group is getting married. You're the last one not married. Uh-oh, I better get married. Otherwise, I don't belong. I don't fit. That's nobody here, of course, right? Right? What do you have to do to belong? And this belongingness thing is very interesting, okay? I'll give you an insight. When I said this, I did a paper with a guy in the Valley, okay? I don't know if you're aware of this, but some people think that the suicide rate, the attempted suicide rate among homosexual youth is about a third. A third. That is what we would label a major health problem. That's big stuff. And here's the Maslow's analysis. Okay? When a kid from a minority group gets called, "You're a dirty so-and-so," the kid goes home, and so are his parents. Okay? His parents belong to whatever ethnic group, at least one of them, right? That kid is getting labeled, and he belongs there, and they can give him a sense of belonging. But when you get called a dirty fag, right, and you go home, odds are your parents are not homosexuals, right? And they're lost. And interestingly enough, this guy did a survey. We were doing this in the Valley. Asked counselors. He got a couple of homophobic messages from the counselors. "Oh, I know you're a homosexual." But two of them. When I said a couple, I meant two. But dozens and dozens of counselors wrote, and they said, "I'd like to help. I just don't know what to do. And when I go to families, I don't know what to do." And that's why these support groups are so important, so that people have a sense of belonging, right? When people lose somebody, you have a death of someone, you feel lost and alone, you go to a group. That's why those groups work so well. You belong, right? And they make you mentally healthier. Let me say, by the way, if you're teaching someone, you have this sense of feeling the kid feels totally isolated, right? That's also behind a lot of teenage suicide, not just attempts, not just homosexual kids. Right, you need right away to go to the counselor. Right away. Don't monkey around. If you're an administrator, right away find a professional. And if you are in this class because you want to be a therapist, you got to hook into people who know what they're doing with that stuff. Okay, if you know, good. But all this stuff, because there's a sense of a need to belong, a sense of being part of something. Okay? That's why some people are so involved in the Scouts, and some people are so involved in this. And society gives you that. And you'll often gear your behavior to do that. Come on, how many people in high school pretended to like something you didn't like to belong? Come on. You pretend to like certain kinds of music because everybody liked it, right? I remember years. I grew up in the Elvis Presley. Elvis, it was Elvis. My wife still has pictures of Elvis plastered everywhere in the house, right? Years later, a friend of mine from high school, a girl, she was a woman then, but she was a girl, when we were kids, she said, "I never liked Elvis, but I couldn't admit it." She was screaming in front of the TV the way everybody else was, right? Because she had to belong. Or pretending to like us. Nobody's pretended to like a sport or like sports when you didn't really, because you had to belong. You had to be part of the group, part of the gang. It's very powerful. And of course, this idea of belonging, you can see it's very similar to the idea of shunning or shaming, right? That we talked about with Erickson's theory. The need to be part of something. And as I said, this gives people a place, if I belong, I can try something. If I know that if I take a step and I screw up and people are going to say, get out of here, I'm not going to risk. If I do, but if I know I belong no matter what, then I'll take a risk. Einstein once said, he gave this away, he didn't really know what he was saying, but this is what he said. He said, if my theories prove correct, Germany will say I'm a German, right, he lived in Germany, and France will say I'm a citizen of the world. If my theories prove incorrect, France will say I'm a German, and Germany will say I'm a Jew, right? And what's he saying? He's giving away where he feels at home. And what do the Jews say? Nothing. That's who he is. He feels no matter what he does, he's got acceptance there. And that basically he was saying, so I was ready to take the risk of basically he put out a theory that overturned everything that modern physics thought, or much of what modern physics thought, not everything, but much. And it was dangerous, okay? Intellectually dangerous. And people say, and if it didn't prove correct, they say Einstein's a jerk. He screwed up everything. He made us all think of stuff. He wasted all our time. He's a jerk. But he felt he could do because there's some place he would feel that he belonged. Okay? And that it went beyond everything else, right? And people will often do that. People get a sense of themselves if they feel, and in schools we're not so good at that, right? When I was at camp, we usually, well, never mind, we'll save that for the next one. You have to make kids feel that whatever skill they have. My wife, that's the best English teacher I know, because I'm married to her right now. She's really a good teacher. She put out a literary journal, and it won prizes every year when she taught in a private school, the one she taught in before this one. But some kids aren't so good at that. So she would have artists. If there was a kid who was good in art and not good at that, the kid would be the artist. One thing, she had 3 kids whose writing was so but they could all draw. So she had a front cover artist, a back cover artist, and in the middle diagram pictures artist. The thing was full of pictures in the middle, illustrations. She had one kid who really had trouble writing. But he was the first kid who knew how to use the computer. He became the editor, right? Copy laid it out. Right, this was obviously years ago. Find a place for everyone where everyone can belong. And our schools don't do this very well. Okay? And often you find people who don't have love and belonging. Let's go to the tabloid, the tablet if we can, the overhead. There's something, what's the word? Wait, I'm not going to give it away. We call people who don't feel they belong anywhere, they're not part of society. Sociologists have a word. Say it again? Alienation? Yeah. Alienation. People who feel alienated. The word, this is the sociologist's word, though. The words that psychologists use is a schizoid personality. People who feel, I don't want anything to do with anyone. And the other side of that is being a sycophant. Does anyone know what a sycophant is? Anybody know that word? Yeah. Push it down, push it down.
A person who wants a lot of attention but doesn't really care, necessarily.
A person who wants attention, right. The best example I can come up with is a butt kisser. Okay? Sorry. Apple polisher, come back to me, okay? A sycophant is someone who will do anything. Just love me. Please love me. Please love me. They'll do anything to get you to like that because that person's love needs are not met. This idea about unconditional love, that's where this comes from. Don't tell the child you're bad. Tell the child, I like you. You're great. Unconditional. I just don't like what you did. That comes from this theory. Okay, it flows out of this theory, out of humanism in general. I love you. Love is unconditional belonging, and society provides the love and belongingness that you need. As I said, it can be in different kinds of settings. It was interesting that when the Nazis finally went after Einstein, and he ran. Okay, he ran to the United States. They got him out. Okay. Big mistake, huh? He was the one who figured out the theory for the atomic bomb that the Allies used. They were actually developing it to against the Germans, but okay, he really, people say he didn't have much trouble making a transition because it was, first of all, he felt he was part of this Jewish community. He was also part of academia. He had that world too. He was a renowned academic, by the way. It didn't matter where he was part of that international academic, brilliant physicist type community. So he belonged somewhere, right? That's why I personally am against year-round schooling, which was big for a while. Because some kids get their belonging in the Scouts, in summer camps. After-school clubs are good. Right? That's why there's no, I don't know. There's no pass, no play. Here, there's one place you feel you're competent, where you belong, where you're doing well. You can't do it. Why don't we have no play, don't pass? Do more people make money from sports, or more people make money from mathematics? Remember, it's not just playing sports, it's managing sports. My guess is sports. But you have to pass that algebra that nobody ever uses if you're going to go play sports or be the manager of the team. I don't know. I'm being a little harsh here, but a place you feel that you belong. Okay? Now, after you belong, finally, I'm part of this group, I'm accepted, it's unconditional. We come to, let's go to the PowerPoint. Next comes, oh, that's not good enough. Now I want esteem. Esteem! Okay? I want people to say I'm good at something. You see what's happening? See if you can get my picture in the corner there? At first you say, okay, never mind, just put the thing back on me. At first you say, oh, if I would just belong, I'd be happy. Then you say, oh, now I want to be the president. Right? Now elect me president, I'll do something for me. Esteem needs. And you do something to get esteem, right? And of course, again, society determines it. You get esteem by shooting the biggest deer, or you get esteem by going out and chaining yourself to a deer so nobody can shoot it. I wouldn't do that if I were you. You wouldn't live too long, right? You know, knocking down all the hunter's blinds, whatever. Depends what brings esteem, where you are, right? Esteem, well, importance, right? There are some people who will tell you, right, who will get in the forefront of things because it'll bring them honors and esteem. It's interesting to watch that, right? I'm very, very active in this. You really believe in it? Well, it doesn't matter. It's the way I found to get esteem. All right? Now, I know no one here ever did this. But, all right, dating the captain of the football team or the cheerleader or something. Ooh, because in my group, we were sort of the, I don't know. I hate to say we were the nerds, but I guess we were, right? One of the guys somehow got a date with a top cheerleader. We couldn't believe it. I don't know what was going on. So afterwards, after about, and then they went out again. So I was talking to him. I said, you like her? He said, no, it's just a boring evening with her. Everything about it boring. So that's it. He said, are you crazy? She's a tough cheerleader. Hey, captain of cheerleader. I'm going out with her again. Everybody sees me going out with her, right? Of course, nobody here ever did that, right? Nobody here ever associated with people you didn't like because of the esteem, or did things you knew because of the esteem, or published articles you weren't too interested in because of the esteem. Never mind. No, we won't even go there. We won't even go there. I dropped my pen. Okay? So these are the kinds of things. Somebody do me a favor. Somebody come and get it so we can. It's just sitting right here. Yeah, you're the closest. Thanks. That's all right. All right, you'll be in the camera. It doesn't matter. Oh, look at that. You did it without even getting in the camera. You're good. Thanks. So now, this schools are really bad. If you think about it, we have a valedictorian, which means everybody stinks but that person. We have honor rolls, okay, which is the same people over and over and over again, right? We have contests so one person wins. I remember when I was a little kid, we lived up the street from the YMCA, so I used to go to the YMCA day camp. At the end of the year, they gave out awards. Every kid got an award. That's what you're talking about. And by the way, they were real awards. What award did I get? What award did you give the kid with the biggest mouth? Most enthusiastic camper, right? But it really got into my personality. I was yelling and screaming and doing all kinds of stuff. That's who I was, right? So these are the kinds of things that we're talking about, is bringing kids esteem. And a good classroom, a good therapy group, any kind of interaction does that for a lot of people. And often we have ways in society. Once I had a student, she was a doctoral student, getting a degree in administration, but she took her required ed psych course from me. We became friends, we talked and this and that. One day she's talking to me, and she had actually been a dean in Texas Women's University. A dean or a department chair, she had been way up there. So I said to her, she was a nurse. She was a nurse, right? So I said to her, oh, and we were talking, I said, oh, so you're getting this degree because this will give you a doctorate and then you can go up farther in the administrative hierarchy. She said, no, not really. She said, I got all the credentials in the nursing world I need to go right to the top if I wanted to. She simply says, I really don't want to. I'm getting out of that. I said, so why are you doing it? She said, you want the truth? She said, so those SOB MDs have to call me doctor too, right? This feeling a nurses have that the doctor sort of looked down at them, oh, I'm the MD, and you're just nobody, right? There's always a lot of griping. I think it's a little better lately since people are begging, please come work. You see those big signs for the nurses, please come work here, right? But this is a tough job. But this idea of that, certain jobs have high esteem and certain don't. And society determines that. Anybody remember Fiddler on the Roof? Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find. Who's the best catch? Anybody remember? Oh, huddle, do I have a guy for you? He's handsome, he's young. All right, he's 62, but he's a nice man. He'll beat you every night, but only when he's sober, so that's all right, right? Who was the big sketch? Remember, a matter of fact, in the play, she gets fixed up by her father with the richest guy in town, the butcher, and it's horrible for her, right? The best catch, remember, is the rabbi's son, because esteem in that community came from learning, from knowledge, right? Not from amassing wealth. We have some of that in our society too. Professors are high in the esteem list in our society. Take my word for it, they don't have a lot of money, right? Don't earn too much money, right? And it's interesting, research physicians, for instance, who don't earn as much as, say, people practicing in the field, they'll look their nose down on practitioners. Certain practitioners have high esteem, surgeons, neurosurgeons. But if you're a family doctor, or you're a dermatologist, or you're a pediatrician or something, just a doctor who doesn't put, the researchers look their nose down on you. At least they used to. And then that kind of thing, because there are pecking hierarchies. What brings esteem? And of course, in our schools, it's pretty clear. The fact that no one has dystonia, or dysmusica, or dysdrausia, is a sign of what we're about. If you're a brilliant artist, but your reading's poor, you don't get nearly the esteem that you get if you're a wonderful reader and you can't draw a lick, right? I remember one little girl, she was the one who said to me, I'm not going into those special ed classes, I'll just get behind her and behind her. She had actually won a couple of prizes for playing piano. She was a good little pianist. She was 9, so she wasn't, a Rubinstein yet, but she was good. It was miserable for her. The school didn't care if she could play piano. She has trouble reading. That's all that counts. That's an esteem of certain kinds of, kinds of things. So it's important in your classroom to have esteem for everyone. Everyone's abilities are good. That's good. You're the editor of this. You're the doer of this. You're this. You're that, etc. And we feel that in society. We don't have janitors and we have maintenance engineers. What's wrong with a janitor? Imagine that tomorrow all the janitors went away and all the garbage men went away. You could either have that or they would stay and all the professors would go away. I think most people would pick to have the janitors and the garbage men stick around, right? You know, have your, right? I mean, you know, it's important work. Somebody has to do it. It's important work. You don't have garbage. You have your society's a mess. You got to pick up the garbage and get rid of it. So these are the kinds of things that we need to think about. Now, let me just say this. Maslow is going to tell you can't tell anything about behavior. Maslow talks about different kinds of behavior, for instance. You can kill an animal because you need to eat. You can kill an animal because the animals are attacking you, right? I remember once I was in a summer camp and there was a bear with cubs, and they picked up the cubs and sent them to the zoo, but they killed the mother. And we were kids, and she kept wandering into the camp. A bear will kill kids, especially if she has cubs. You can eat because, you know, we socialize over food, love and belongingness, or esteem needs. How many people do you know who eat caviar? Can't stand the taste because it's. Did you ever taste caviar? That's what I think of it. But fortunately, I grew up with young rebels, so we poo-pooed it, right? Oh, right. Maslow never fails to talk about sex. We'll get to that, right? Sex can be a physiological need, obviously. It can be a physical safety. Maslow often talked about how women in many societies, not Maslow, but the feminists would talk about women in many societies were unsafe without a man to protect them. Okay? Or getting married because it's consistent, it's predictable. Getting married because everybody in your group is getting married. Or, you ever notice how these Hollywood stars, at the top high esteem, are always marrying each other and getting divorced? Not all of them. Not all of them. Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, who were both big stars when they got married, have been married for 30 years, something like that. Okay? Not all of them. But a lot of them, it's just, you know, sort of in and out. Sometimes you think it's a publicity trick because it's for esteem. It's not for, right? So, now the final stage, let's go to the PowerPoint, is Maslow calls this self-actualizing needs. When these are all met, these need to be met. Although, don't forget that other humanists, Rogers in particular, will say that's just not, it's not quite as strict as Maslow says. We always have these actualizing needs, is becoming who you were meant to be. Your aesthetic and intellectual needs being met. Maslow didn't actually talk about this. I told you these came out in the book that was written 10 years or so after he died, but that's what he's talking about. Okay, come back to me. That this is now, you do what you do and what you like to do. Either on your job, if you can, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about the fact, I'll tell you the truth, I used to worry a lot about the fact that I would much rather go see a Broadway musical than the symphony. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. You don't like Oklahoma?
I can't stand it.
You can't stand it. Push it down.
I hate Oklahoma.
You see that? You know why? Do you know why?
Because
Push it down, push it down.
damn songs get stuck in your head. I'm so sick of the cowboy and the rancher.
Oh, the farmer and the rancher should be friends. See that? Okay. It doesn't matter why. Would you rather go to the symphony?
Yes.
Say it. Push it down.
Symphony over Oklahoma.
Yes. So Maslow would say, let her go to the symphony, let me go to Oklahoma. What about West Side Story? There's a place for us somewhere. She doesn't like Broadway musicals. It doesn't matter to me. She's going to fail the course, and that's the end. What do I care? Right? Okay. But that's who I am, and that's who I should be, right? I mean, I can even tell you why, because my father used to like them, and I liked them, and we used to sing them, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I really like them. I like folk music.
I love folk music.
Push it, Noreen.
I love folk music.
Okay, you're up to a D. Okay. So other people can't stand it. I put it on. My wife runs out of the house. Okay. Some people like this kind of art. Some people like that kind of art. Okay. I got to tell you something. In the British National Museum, there's a painting by Seurat called Man with Hoe. And it's before he started that pointillism stuff. It's French Impressionism. I stood in front of that picture for 20 minutes. It's just a brilliant picture. So beautiful. I just can't explain it to you. Take my wife there. My wife likes it. She looks, says, yeah, that's a nice picture. And she goes, I want to see the other pictures. Okay? Who knows why? Who knows what it touches in me? Okay? It's not a well-known picture because it's before his pointillism period. Seurat, I have the right guy, don't I? Pointillism, Seurat? Yeah, I think so, yeah. Just something magnificent. Who knows why? Who knows why I like to read political magazines? I get a million of them. Okay? Other people here, how many people would rather walk on glass than have to read political magazines? Yeah, we have several hands going up here, right? Of course. It doesn't matter. Now it's your aesthetic needs, what interests you intellectually, what you want to do. And people here are able to follow their own. And what happens here, says Maslow, is there are certain characteristics that typify people at this stage, right? Number one, they're very democratic in spirit, right? They understand, I'm who I am, you're who you are. He was saying, the only people, Maslow said, this is not a quote, but it's close. The only people of whom these people are intolerant are intolerant people, right? The only people against whom they have prejudice are prejudiced people, something like, in other words, people are bigots and want nothing to do with them. There's a cherishing of every human being. I told you, I think that Maslow said, when I go to work every day, I hope to learn from my colleagues. He was a professor at a university. My colleagues, my students, are from the person who cleans the floors. And he meant it. He really did. And he learned from everyone. There's a democratic character structure, a cherishing of every person as a unique and wonderful individual. Right? So they'll never make jokes at other people's expense, except their own. So you don't hear Polish jokes and all that kind of stuff, that, racist jokes. I really got to tell you, they turn me off big time. Okay? There's a sense of an appreciation of the world. Did I tell you about watching the sunset? I don't think I did. When I lived in Israel, I lived in a kibbutz settlement that was just up from the beach and up on a hill, right? In Israel, the Mediterranean, right up from the Mediterranean coast. Has anybody ever lived on a west coast and seen the sun set into the ocean? You seen it? Yeah? Where'd you live?
Santa Monica.
Push it down. Santa Monica, California. Where did you live? San Francisco. Where did you live? San Francisco, right in California. It's unbelievable. It goes into the ocean, right? And all of a sudden the light starts to splinter. It looks like it's falling into the ocean. If you get the right clouds, the clouds are purple and red. It's just, am I right? It's magnificent. But it happens every day, unless it's raining, right? So, and in Israel, by the way, it only rains during the raining season. You get day after day after day where it's not going to rain. It's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. So you see it, and you see it again, you see it again, you see it again, you see it again. So, and in the kibbutz where I was, there was a work-study program of college students in Israel came to work and to study. And so they came, and we're this, and then I'm talking, and they get their stuff, and then we're going to dinner the first day, right? Going to dinner. And in those days, the kibbutz had a communal dining hall. Pretty much everybody in this communal dining hall. So I'm going and I'm talking. And right, it's evening. I'm going and I'm talking to her. All of a sudden I'm talking to myself. I turn around, she's gone. And I see her there, and she's like this, looking at this gorgeous sun. She was from the Midwest, right, U.S., and she'd never seen it, right? The sun setting into it was gorgeous. I don't know, I'd seen it how many times? 300 times already? Who knows, I mean, right? So, yeah, same reaction I had the first time I saw it. But for Maslow said, people have a fresh appreciation. It's beautiful every time. Burnout means I can't appreciate it anymore. Kids do wonderful things, right? Therapists burn out. Can't do it anymore. Even to the point where you're making a positive difference, and I can't take it anymore, right? There's something, and I think you had an article on it, called the peak experience. I feel free saying that because I'm pretty sure I'm going to sign it as long as this tape is going to run. This idea of suddenly knowing. I had one in my life, and I was only in my 30s. I remember, all of a sudden, something hit me. I was reading articles on the basement of a library, and it hit me. I got it. I understood it. It was all there. That's when I became a convinced, it had to do with learning theory based on, program learning based on behavioral theory. There was one article about doing certain things that didn't make any difference how kids learn it. All of a sudden it hit me, holistically. And I remember I ran up the stairs of the library and I skipped around the library. And I went downstairs and I skipped around. I don't know how many times I bathed, and I was just bathed in the glory of knowing. 10 minutes. I looked at my watch, over an hour had passed. I must have been skipping around that thing forever, just thinking. It was just wonderful. Of course, then when I went to give the report in this class, I couldn't quite get it out to say, don't just see I couldn't get the beauty out because it was in my soul. There are actually 16 characteristics Maslow has here. His book is called, that I got this from, his chief book is called Motivation and Personality. He wrote many other, The Mind's Eye, but this is his, I would get the second edition if I were you. That was the one he really wrote, but the third is good too. Motivation and Personality. And he talks about the 16 characteristics of self-actualizing people. Okay? Okay, come back to me. And you can see that self-actualizing people have no bigotries, they have no hates, they have no preconceptions about people because of what they look like or what they are. This is actually the theory that made me start to right away. This one and Kohlberg's have doubts about multiculturalism. Oh, Hispanics are like this and blacks are like that and whites are like this. Please. Each person is an individual. I had one person, did I tell you about this Asian student who came to me? She comes to me, she said, I suck at math. Right? She was Chinese. She said, I suck at math. Everybody thinks, oh, Chinese students are wonderful at math. So I can't get the help I need. Right? People assuming, oh, because you're from this ethnic group, you're this way, or from that ethnic group, you're that way. That's bad. Each person is a unique individual with unique ideas, abilities. I want to keep saying this for 27 times, right? And each person has to be judged as an individual. Not only that, but you shouldn't be judgmental. If someone likes to do something that doesn't turn you on at all, like collect rocks. Who collects rocks? You're kidding me. I remember 9th grade earth science. I hated the geology part with such a passion. What's this rock? What's that rock? What's that? Who gives a damn? It's just a rock. You collect rocks? You know what they all are? Push it down, push it down.
There are so many, I don't think you could ever know all of them.
Yeah, you know a lot. Yeah. How many people would rather eat a rock than spend your life collecting them? Please. So what? Don't be judgmental just because I can't stand it. She likes to do it. How many people save every card you ever got? Card, like birthday card. You got the camera in the wrong place, guys. Come back to me here. I'm the only one. All right, who knows? I look at them. Anybody collect matchbooks? I collect matchbooks. 2, 3 weirdos. Oh my goodness. Who collects something strange? Who collects something? What do you collect? Money. Money, really? Do you collect coins? Are you a coin collector?
No, just money.
Just money. Yeah. That's not so strange. Yeah, go ahead. Push it down, push it down, push it down.
My wife collects pianos.
She collects pianos?
Toy pianos.
Toy pianos. She's a piano teacher, right? But still, you know, that's it. It's interesting. The librarian at my wife's school could do the same thing, collects little statues of frogs. I don't see it. What's the difference? Go ahead.
Origami?
Origami, you collect origami?
Yeah.
And you do it too?
Just some.
Some. Who's ever tried origami and hated it? You're folding paper up. What's the difference? There's so many things to do out there. What do you got? You got something weird to another weirdo. Go ahead.
No,
Push it down, push it down, push it down.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I don't know if they can out there. Go ahead.
Well, not me. I don't collect nothing, but my sister collects turtles.
Turtles.
Yeah, she has all kinds of little ceramic turtles.
Right.
She has tattoos
Right.
of turtles and stuff.
Look, if I went around enough and asked enough questions, we'd all be weird. Right? Something that you really like and enjoy that most people don't care about. That's just how it is. Or the other way around. Something most people care about. You know how many golf shows there are on television? Not for me. I don't care. Right? There's a whole golf channel. I try to delete it. I can't get it off. Right? I don't know what's going on. I don't care. So what? A lot of people like golf. A lot of people. I don't know what I'm going to do when I retire. I have no interest. So, you know, these kinds of things.
Don't retire.
Don't retire. There you go. If the stock market doesn't pick up soon, it may come true. Okay. So these are the kinds of things that people are different. They're unique. They have new ideas, unique abilities, unique talent. And as you saw in Roger's article, Roger said, let people follow and interest them. That's how they'll learn to read. That's how they'll learn to write. That's how they'll come to things. Of course, you have to show people things to get them interested. Humanistic educators are going to tell you the same thing. You've got to give options to people. Okay, if a person never sees a musical instrument, they're not going to pay. If a person never sees any science experiment, it's not going to get too interested in science. If my father hadn't taken me to see the movie 42nd Street, I never would have been interested in musicals. Maybe next class, instead of talking about Coburg, I'll just stand and we'll sing musicals, from Broadway musicals.
Have you ever seen that movie with the kids in the school? I think it's West Side Story.
West Side Story. I was just singing from West Side Story. There's a place for us when you're a jet. I'm going to be singing that. Okay. Now here's something very interesting about needs. Okay. Let's say this class is, I put out some mental puzzles. Okay. I put out some mental puzzles. And I've divided the room in half. Now, and this class is consistent of all, they're tough puzzles to do. I've given them to hundreds of people, and in this room are all the people who have successfully completed all the puzzles. Here are the people who are really experts at doing it. I've divided the room in half at random, and these people I'm going to give, the people to my left, I'm going to give another puzzle to do, and this part of the room I'm going to give a puzzle to do, but it can't be solved. It looks like it can be solved, but it can't be. Okay? It can't be solved. So you work and you work and you work. A seventh success. I've given you, both of you have been given, right, 6 puzzles to solve and you're okay. 7th one you can't do, right? Then I give another one to them. They solve it. Another one here that can't be solved. It looks like it can. It's a mental puzzle. I do it 6 times. 6 times. So now these people have had 6 successes. These people have 6 failures. Now I give a 7th puzzle that cannot be solved to both people. Who do you think is going to work longer on it? The people who have just had the 6 successes, or the people who have just had the 6 failures? That's where the 6 came from. I had it in the wrong spot. Who's going to work longer on it? The people with the 6 successes, right? By the way, they really did that. You don't just think about, they really did, and of course that's exactly what happened. People, I quit. So what do we learn from this? Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Needs deprivation. The less a need is deprived when it first emerges, the better a person is able to tolerate a subsequent deprivation of that need. Therefore, if you want to be able, a person to be able to tolerate food deprivation, if you want people, be certain that that person is never hungry. If you want people to be able to tolerate danger, be certain that they are always safe. Okay? Wait, let's do that one first. Come back to me, okay? During World War II, they did experiments with soldiers. And they wanted to know, that was before Human Rights Committee, the sergeant said, sit down and fill us out, and you did. Or he went to the lieutenant, the captain said to the sergeants, lieutenants, these guys are going to talk to you, answer their questions. Which soldiers did better under conditions of danger? Let me tell you what the most dangerous thing is. You see, over there, there's some guys over there who are on top of a hill, and they want to kill you. Now, you have to go capture that hill while they're trying to kill you, right? That's as dangerous as things get. That's as threatening to your safety needs as anything could be. People are trying to kill you, right? So when the lieutenant or the sergeant says, come on, let's go over the hill and charge, who do you think was the most likely to charge? The people who come from warm, loving, safe, protected environments, or the people who came from neighborhoods where there was danger on the street? They'd known danger all their life. They knew danger. They were used to danger. Who do you think were the ones most likely to say, okay, I'm going, and the ones most likely to run or to try to get out of it?
Second.
What?
Second.
Push it down.
Who exposed to danger?
They were the more likely to follow, right? Not even close. These were the people whose safety needs had been deprived all their lives. The minute there was a slight threat to their safety, they sought safety. They pretend to be injured. They'd fall down. They'd lag in the back. The ones who had been safe all their lives were the best able to tolerate short-term threats to their safety. And when they were asked afterwards, they would say, the first group would say, I'm not going out there. They're trying to kill me. Let them say, charge all you want. The hell with him. The others would say, I trust the lieutenants and the sergeants. I believe they're basically out for me and for my safety. And I'm ready to, I'm ready to follow them, and I believe it's short term that basically it's safe, and they want to keep me safe. Matter of fact, they did this again in the Israeli army. The whole Israeli army is built on this principle, to ensure people that they're safe. In the Israeli army, you charge by rank. Nobody says go, they all say follow me. I know in 1967, I don't know about the subsequent war, there were, in the 1967 war, the Six-Day War, there were 670-something soldiers killed, 19 were privates. Unbelievable, huh? And by the Israeli army, you're not automatically promoted. You have to take a course to become a corporal. You have to go through like an officer's course. And if you don't take it, you stay a private. There are a lot of privates. Okay, you're not automatically promoted to corporal and sergeant. Okay? Follow me. We're going to try to rescue you. We're never going to cut you off. To try to make people feel safe. And the safer, people who feel, okay? And so, let's go back to the PowerPoint. If you want to, therefore we can conclude, this is not directly from Maslow, but humanists would agree with this, following this logic. If you want people to be able to tolerate frustration, don't frustrate them, like in the experiment we just did. If you want people to tolerate failure, be certain that they succeed often. If you want people to be able to tolerate humiliation, be certain you are constantly supportive and caring toward them. Okay? Come back to me. That's the key for Maslow. When people's needs are met, they are better able to tolerate the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, that's from Shakespeare, right? That society throws at them. People who basically feel it's okay, right? So those Korean kids who are still stealing food in high school, stealing in quotes, right? You don't get that with people who come from, had plenty of food, okay? People who basically feel safe are able to much better tolerate situations when their safety is deprived. And if you want to read a wonderful book, it's by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is actually an existential psychologist. Let's go to the over. Viktor Frankl, called Man's Search for Meaning. I think that's what it's called. I'm getting old. I can't. What? Man's Search for Meaning. And it's actually an account. Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi concentration camp. And it's an account, this is a K. It's an account, he invented what he called logotherapy. He's actually an existential psychologist, but actually often sees humanistic existential. The differences between them are too slight for us to worry about now. And Frankl talks about how some people just deteriorated right back down into their physiological and their safety needs, and other people didn't do it. One guy told a story how his mother was starving to death, would go to the fence between the men's and the women's section and throw her crust of bread over to him. He said, that's how I lived. She died from starvation. And he said how some people just weren't that way. It's a powerful, moving book. And it's a book in which he talks about the importance for human love and caring. And that will create a healthy personality, fulfilling people's needs and letting people be who they are meant to be. Okay? Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And interestingly enough, what Maslow says is that when it comes to deficiency needs, people are passive. Society has to provide your deficiency needs. But when being needs, you're active. Let me tell you something about self-actualizing people. They're not angels. Self-actualizing people, Maslow said, they concentrate on what they want. I wrote one article on Maslow, come back to me, for Society of Engineers. And here's how it was. A graduate student and I wrote it. She calls in, she says, a guy calls me from the Society of Engineers, and he says, my older engineers are my best engineers, but they're a pain in the behind. Okay? Why? He said, one guy calls, and he's working in the lab on some engineering problem, and he's working on it, and he said, this guy says, I'm the vice president of the company. I called up and I said, the government official is up here, who's funding this is here, come and talk to him. Right, they had a government grant. And he yelled into the phone, I don't have time to backslap some bureaucrat. I'm working on something. And he slammed the phone down and he wouldn't do it, right? He said they have few close relationships, but they're very concentrated. He said, and when people do them in, they want nothing to do with them, even people they've had a long time. People say, of course, Maslow's describing his own personality. Okay? Maslow talks about self-actualizing love, this coming together, not because I need you, but because we fulfill each other in a wonderful way, even though we're both people ourselves. Everyone knows Maslow said he had a wonderful marriage. He and his wife were married for a long, long time, and they had a wonderful marriage. So he's describing himself in many ways. But what he basically says is that initially, people have to meet your needs, but then when you're finally self-actualizing, you can follow your own style. You're active. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay? He says people learn best when their developmental needs are met, and people change by having their needs met, and people are motivated by their internal needs. That's the heart of the theory. And Maslow is the one, get my picture out of there, who says, we really know nothing from behavior. There we go, thanks. He says, we have to understand the underlying need that motivated behavior. Because a given stage can give rise to many different behaviors. One person can kill a deer for prestige, another person can save a deer for prestige. And likewise, a given behavior can be indicative of many different stages. I can kill a deer for prestige, or I can kill a deer because I'm hungry. Right? Maslow's theory, of course, deals with emotions, not cognition, but he does maintain that proper emotional development is crucial to curiosity and to creative thinking. And when you ask them how important are emotions, they'll tell you they're all important. Emotional well-being is the key to thinking and to proper learning. Okay? And he says, for Maslow, move it back the other way, okay, emotional health is the goal of education. Education should be nurturing. The teacher should facilitate, not dictate, to help kids pursue their own interests. Each child is unique, and educational goals for each kid must be unique. And I think that's it. Okay. And Maslow was going to tell you, come back to me now, Maslow was going to tell you that the reason that what we have here is people don't learn because of the crushing of psychological bones. For Maslow, this idea of predictating a curriculum that everyone has to follow, it's a travesty. And telling kids, don't follow your own curiosity. Helping kids stay on task, which means doing what I want you to do. You know, I've known a few people who went to these, what they call open schools, not you just take down the walls, but real schools like this. I had one guy, they're just a strange breed of cat. I went to graduate school with one guy like this. He was a master's student, I was a doctoral student. One day we get into this talk about the book of Job. And we're talking about it and batting it back and forth. So he calls the professor that day and says, my paper's going to be a little bit late. I have something else to do. The next class meeting, a week later, he hands me a 20-page paper on Job and his thoughts on Job. Because I wasn't interested in him then. He used to tell me he couldn't wait to get to school in the morning. He used to bother his mother. Get me up. I got this project to finish. I've got to get it done. Strange, huh? And these schools ultimately, they have a faith in people. Exactly the opposite of Freud, as you can see. And the wellness movements, the movements that deal with health, the movement that deal just plain with humanity and people and human dignity, they come from the humanists. People say you have to protect the whole motion toward being healthy, rather not just being not sick. That comes from the humanists. Nutrition stuff actually has a lot of its stuff from the humanists. Wellness centers from the humanists. Now it's become physical too, but emotional also. We're not just trying to cure people's diseases, we're trying to have them build healthy relationships, become healthy and caring people. Okay? And for Maslow, it's who you are and how you interact. Creativity comes from mental health. Okay? Interesting enough, Maslow had a problem. For instance, he says that ultimately creativity is rooted in self-actualizing. Well, Wagner, probably a pretty creative musician. We have a musician, what do you think? Pretty good music, Wagner? Yay. Push it down, say it.
I will say great music.
Great music. Wagner was a bitter racist. An anti-Semite. It was so terrible. He was good friends with Nietzsche, and Nietzsche finally said, I can't stand being with you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. How do you explain that? Because you can't be self-actualizing if you're full of bitter racism, right? Mozart was a genius by the time he was, what, 3, 7? Who knows? He was writing gorgeous music. Well, you can't be self-actualized when you were a little kid. As a matter of fact, if you saw Amadeus, Mozart had a screw or two loose, right? To put it mildly, right? That's pretty accurate. Everybody who knew him said something crazy about him, but he was brilliant. So Maslow calls it special creativity. He wasn't sure what to do with it. But he will tell you, there's a big debate in creativity. Is creativity product or is creativity process? One day, sitting in some woman sitting in her kitchen, takes out the soup to heat it up. The stove doesn't work. Oh, nuts. So all of a sudden she says, gee, why couldn't you have soup cold? I'll make a cold soup. And she goes and she invents and this and tomatoes and this and that. She invents a cold soup. Then somebody gives her a cookbook, and there it is, gazpacho, right? It's been invented before. Some people will say, well, this wasn't creative because somebody had done it already. Maslow says, it's very creative. She thought about it herself. It came out, it was a wonderful thing, right? She owned the idea. It was hers. She understood it. So what if somebody had thought about it before? Creativity comes from big things and little things. You want to know the person, this was true in the 1970s, who made I'm going to stand up, who made the most money from any invention? You won't believe it. The guy who invented this thing. This thing, don't worry, I'm not getting undressed. Here, let me come out here. Can you see me? This thing, to hook your pants instead of a button. That guy made $7 million in the first year. It wasn't a rocket. It wasn't a new theory of the universe. But it was creative. Or the weed eater. Oh, boy, was that just an idea. I remember before the weed eater trying to get the grass by the fence. Cutting it by hand and trying to get a scythe in there, and then you nick the fence. Damn! And then weed eater, no problem. Right? And that guy apparently worked a long time, following a dream. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, now we're going to talk about something else. Moral development. We're still staying in the idea of morality. Somebody tell me where we get our morals and values from. Where do they come from?
Your parents.
Parents. Here, I'll make a little list on here. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, I know how to do this. Okay. Whoops. Okay. Well, I'll make this list and then we'll leave. Where else do values and morals come from? Go ahead. Teachers. Oh, thank God somebody mentioned that in the school college of education. Somebody else. Go ahead. What'd you say?
Religious leaders.
Religion, right? Religious thing.
Culture and tradition.
Culture. Tradition.
Society.
Say it again?
Society.
Society in general, okay. See, I could take this and make it the headline here. From your environment, right? Come back, I gotta yell. See, you're all a bunch of damn learning theorists. Oh, we just pick it up from society. Just the way Skinner or Bandura say, right? But you can't say, but you see, developmental psychologists have a problem, okay? You can't, I'm gonna stand up. You can't say, when it comes to this over here, this is your understanding of your physical environment. You build construction, you build reality, you interact with reality, you try to understand reality. Okay? And then you go through stages, constantly changing your qualitative understanding, constructing your own reality. When it comes to society, on this side, social values, moral values, you just learn them. Just inculcate them from, copy them, get reinforced. No, it can't be that way. Either people are this way or that way. And so the first person actually to take the step from here over to here and said, no, I believe in Kohlberg, I believe that also in the area of morality, in a social area we develop, and since another was Kohlberg. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. We're talking about Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Now I have better slides. Hopefully at the break I have a few extra slides, but my computer was messed up, so we'll try after the break. We're going to talk about Kohlberg's theory of moral development. And Kohlberg's, like Piaget's theory, is an organismic developmental theory. Okay? He's going to say we go through a universal invariant sequence of hierarchical stages. Sorry. Okay, so come back to me. So he's going to say like Piaget, there's a sequence, everybody goes through it, we go through it in order, it's hierarchical, you got to get one right before you go on to the next one, and we do it by constructing ever better models of morality. And like Piaget, he's going to say, and it's going to be much more important here, what matters to me is not answers, but the reasoning you use to get your answers. And by investigating your reasoning, by investigating people's reasoning, I have developed a hierarchy of internally constructed moral stages. Let me give you a good example. Here, we'll get two people up here. Don't sit up front. Just sit here, that's okay. I have asked both of these people, here I have another chair for you. Is this okay where they are? Have a seat, have a seat. I have asked both of these people, are you for or against the death penalty? Person number one has told me, absolutely, adamantly opposed.
Absolutely for.
And person number two has told me, I'm for it 100%. So I asked person number one, how come? He said, well, I got convicted for breaking into a store, holding up the clerk, shooting three of the customers and robbing the store. I killed 4 people. Really, you sorry you did it? Well, what I'm sorry about is there was a 5th customer and I didn't see him and he turned me, or I didn't see her and she turned me in. That's the only thing I'm sorry about. But I'm opposed because I'm going to get executed in 4 hours. Second person, what about you? Absolutely for it. Why? I'm his only living relative. He has a Lexus. If they knock him off, I get the Lexus. Kill him right away! I'm driving this old junker. I want the Lexus. Oh, okay. What about what he did? I don't care what he did. Killed a lot of people. Forget it. Of no concern to me. I want the Lexus. Knock him off. What if he's innocent? Knock him off. I want the Lexus. Now, these two people, Kohlberg says, are reasoning at the same level of moral development. Pretty low, by the way. They must be graduate students. but I'm just kidding. Take it easy. But he says they have exactly opposite answers, but the same level of moral development. What's in it for me? I don't care about anybody or anything else. Okay? Thank you very much. We have our two low-level people. We'll see if we can rehabilitate them later. I'm not sure, but we'll give it a shot. Okay? So Kohlberg says that this is the key. This is the key to understanding moral development, this development of how people think. And you're going to get now people who agree with each other. With Piaget, 99% of the people tell when you pour water, it's still the same if they're concrete operational. But here we're going to get people on different sides of issues at the same moral level, and people on the same side at different moral levels. We're going to get people at higher moral levels who are for capital punishment, and people, that's about as low as the moral level can go, and people at higher moral levels who are against capital punishment for various reasons. Okay? And you have to be careful. Just because you like an argument, not to say, oh, it's at a higher stage, just because you're on one side or another of something. Yeah, go ahead.
You said the key to understanding moral development is what?
Moral reasoning. Reasoning. The same way Piaget says.
So the key to understanding moral development is
Moral reasoning. Not the answers to questions. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Kohlberg says all people are born with the same innate genetic abilities to assimilate and accommodate. Just the way Piaget says. Remember, the stages are not innate. And he says all human societies present people with the same moral challenges and dilemmas. I know what you're thinking. What are you, nuts? No way. Okay? Come back to me. Go ahead. Why no way? Push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down.
It's a whole universe of answers of why all human societies presenting people with the same moral challenges. I mean,
go ahead.
Are you going to say that the people who live on some South Pacific island have the same moral challenges that we have here?
That's what Kohlberg says. Don't look at me. I'm just reporting what I learned.
Where the people from the mutiny on the Bounty live.
Uh-huh. Pitcairn Island, right.
They were in the news.
Sam, I think you're absolutely right, Sam.
That's right. People are, yeah. As you are well aware, the people who are multiculturalists, every society determines reality, don't like this theory. But what Kohlberg is going to tell you is you cannot see the forest for the trees. Just like Piaget will tell you, you're so interested in whether it's icicles or bananas being pushed apart, you can't see that the principles are the same. So after we get back from the break, I'll show you what Kohlberg's logic is. And by the way, Kohlberg's one of my professors, so it's a logic I buy into. I'll tell you the truth. Okay, see you after the break.